Alan Hudson Podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you're not yet a subscriber to the podcast, but it'd be great if you would follow us. Just click on the subscribe channel, on the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, the Alan Hudson Podcast. Today, we've been joined by a fantastic Chelsea favourite, Tommy Langley. Alan and Tommy and we're going to be discussing the late, great Johnny Dempsey, who unfortunately passed away earlier this week. Tommy, thanks for joining us today. It's obviously been a very sad week, but I'm sure you've got some great memories of Johnny from your time at the Bridge.
Yeah, Tony. I mean, look, when I was speaking to my son, because we were joining him in Balham for this weekend, obviously last night's game at the Stamford Bridge and Arsenal at the weekend, and he said his last comment was, did you hear about John Dempsey? And obviously I said no. And it was such a shock, Tony. People like Huddy, people like John Dempsey, they were my heroes. I mean, and even at 66, they're still my heroes. And when I went into the box, I think it was September, Demps was in there, the hospitality box, and he was full of life. I mean, Demps was he wasn't sort of, he'd sit there. He was quite an unassuming man, but he would sit there and I gave him a cuddle. Hello, Demps, how you doing, Lerdler? And we had a real good chat, and he looked in rude health. It was just such a shock. And you know what happened as well, Tony, he became as much a friend as he was a hero. Gary Locke and myself used to travel in from Basingstoke, and on the odd occasion we'd pop into Camberley where Demps lived, pick him up, take him to the training ground and drop him off. So he actually became a very, very good friend. And so it really was such a shock the other night to hear that he'd passed away, having looked so good literally 6-7 weeks ago.
Yeah. Alan, I know he was a great pal of yours, a great hero of yours almost.
Well, the thing, heroes are, the word heroes are thrown about. It was like, just to say he was a great friend, and is probably, I watched him play at Fulham. I was a Fulham supporter. Me and little Bill Boyce, we used to go there. We loved Johnny Haynes, Graham Leggett. We loved these kind of players, but John Dempsey at the back for them was, it was probably Dave's best signing. When you think about it, Dave Sexton was at Fulham, and obviously knew about Demps from there. But it's funny how he picked Demps out. He picked him out as a player, not as a character, because he was one of those that could drive you mad. You know what I mean? He'd love to drive people mad. He liked play tricks on people. He'd play tricks on Harry Meadows. He walked in one day and Harry Meadows had gone out to the bathroom or so, gone over the road to get another packet of cigarettes, and he come back and Demps had his white jacket on, his white coat, and he was doing the old giving someone treatment on the table, and he would say something like, "Yeah, amputation, next please," and all that. It was just a bundle of fun. As I said the other day, and it's the first time I've ever said about anyone, really. And I had some great friends throughout football, including Thomas here, young Tom. But you got to have a Dempsey in the dressing room, because times when you're low, I had more low times, well, maybe at Arsenal, but at Chelsea, real low times, bad injury and problems with the club. And you needed a Dempsey in there.
Yeah.
And he never had a problem in the world. Everybody else, there was the likes of Charlie and Sponge and Oz and Boilers, there's always something going on. But with Dempsey, he was just like, someone off the street coming in the dressing room every day. And, life was a joy, And even when he packed up and, you hear about all these so-called superstars earning fortunes, he was such a good player as well. He was in my all-time Chelsea team, which says so much, alongside John Terry, which speaks volumes for how good he was.
Alan, what a compliment that is, by the way.
Yeah, mate. I mean, he was as good. I used to, believe it or not, all these Chelsea supporters, whatever they think of me, I used to think about our team a lot and think where Dave was going right, where he was going wrong. Defensively we struggled at times, but where we never struggled was with John Dempsey. He was a man that I rarely see make a mistake. And one of the loveliest stories I heard of him is, I think I've told this before. Tony might remember me tell it on one of these shows. He played. Osgood played. I think Chelsea might have played Fulham in a testimonial down at Craven Cottage, and Oz said he got the ball once and he went by him, and he, when Oz, before he broke his leg, I think he went to drop his shoulder, go one way, went the other, and he went by Dempsey as if he weren't there. The testimonial. Dempsey was being good, and then a few minutes later he done it again, and he got a right hander right where he didn't want it, below the belt, and. And Dempsey says, "You ever try that again?" He says, "It'll be your leg." He says, and this was in a testimonial,
Yeah.
It must say, don't take the piss, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, we signed him, and so Oz knew how good he was.
Yeah.
And you just didn't take liberties, because nobody took liberties with Oz, But he was. I don't know, and he was just an outstanding character. He was unbelievable character. He was, and get on with everybody, everybody's best mate. Everybody loved him. Couldn't, he was faultless in a world which is not a really nice world, especially today. But and going into what he did after having such a great career at Chelsea and Fulham, and he played for Ireland and got some great experiences, and then take over a job with handicapped children afterwards.
Yeah, no, man,
volumes for his character.
Absolutely, that. It's funny, Alan, leading on from your Harry Meadows story. We had a little one as well. He came in one morning and he went, "Look at this," and he's got crosses on his knee. So he gone, "What's that?" He said, "I got my wife last night. I had pain in the knee." He said, "I got her to put a cross where I had the pains." And he went and see Norman Meadows, because Norman took over from Harry. And he went, "What's wrong, Dempsey?" He said, "I've got pain on where the crosses are." He said, so we were just falling around, because that was Dempsey. He was such a beautiful man that he didn't think that was funny. He just thought, I got a pain, so I need to point out where it is. But he came in with about 3 X's on his knee. It was like madness. But the little I knew of him, Alan, I didn't know as well as you, but as I said, I had the beauty of traveling in with him, and as an older pro, he was brilliant. Exactly what you said. He was a great leader, and if you needed someone to step up, and in them days you could actually give someone a dig. You can't anymore, but if you said, and Demps would do it, but he'd do it in such a great manner that you didn't know he was doing it. It was a very weird player. That it's like Alan said, to include him as number 2 or alongside John Terry as in an all-time great. A lot of Chelsea fans wouldn't even know John Dempsey. They'd know him, but which is amazing, because he was so good but so unassuming. He was not in your face. He was not an Alan Hudson or a Peter Osgood or a flair player who could change the game. But he could change the game defensively, because he would stop people doing what they're good at, as he's just explained with Ozzy in a testimonial.
Well, I think, Tom, what you're saying is that, it's a little bit along the same lines of referees. We used to say years ago, a good referee was never noticed.
Yeah, but exactly. Yeah.
Where they're noticed all the time now, where they're no good. They just can't make a decision. And all the best defenders, at Stoke, I played with a couple in Alan Dodd and Alan Bloor. They just done things and they were off the radar, and it was me and Greenough would get, and Jeff Salmons would, Terry Conroy, and they would get all the headlines. But these people, Peter Simpson at Arsenal, if he'd have been, Marvin Hinton, these kind of people.
Yeah.
But no, Demps was it's difficult. It's difficult to carry on joking about him and laughing about him when something so terrible has happened. All right, it happens to everybody. Everybody, time comes. But as you just said, which was the hurtful thing with me, was he hadn't got what people have been saying about. I went to see Stan Bowles and Frank Worthington long before they passed away, and when they had this terrible disease. And but there was Johnny seemed all right, and it was that was a shock to me that my mate called me. He said, Johnny Westwood from East London. He called me at 8:30, which he never does, and says, "Got some real bad news for you. Your favourite player died," and that was it. And he knew he was my favourite, because everything he done was for the team, really. Yeah, it wasn't for him; it was for the team, and he was just lovely, lovely bloke. Very, very sad day. I've had a few bottles, 3 or 4 bottles of champagne in my fridge, and people keep going to my fridge and say, "When are you going to drink that?" And I was going to wait for a really special day, and I was going to spoke to my son, and Donald Trump got in, so I thought I'm going to crack this open today. I said, but it's going to be for Dempsey as well. It's going to be a bittersweet one, and it was a bittersweet one because I didn't enjoy it. It was just a bad day, and I don't know what the next step will be if we get to go to see, whatever. Because when Tommy left us, that was a bit of a cock up. We was all going to fly up there, and they changed the dates and everything else. But that was more. I don't know. Was it COVID? It weren't nothing to. I don't know. I was confused. But this one has really hit us,
Yeah.
And there's been far too many of them recently, isn't there?
Yeah, and the new point earlier as well, Al, about every dressing room needs a John Dempsey. You're absolutely spot on. Someone who's going to be there 100% every Saturday afternoon at 3:00. He's going to be putting his foot in and doing the best. And there's a lot of people that goes unnoticed because they're not the superstars of the game. But as I said, everyone needs a John Dempsey in their dressing room.
I don't think he ever missed a game, did he? He's one of those playing that. I can't remember the apart from going and giving players treatment in the dress because you weren't really allowed in the medical room. It wasn't a medical room really. It was that's where you used to go to have a bit of fun, wasn't it? In the little treatment room. Because you can you remember the old treatment room, Tommy, at the bridge? Yeah, I do. Yeah, in the back room.
Yeah,
because then it moved, didn't it? When they started doing the stand, then they had the big one upstairs. That's where I was sitting. That was the treatment room. I was sitting having treatment on the Friday afternoon, and I was in the reserves and weren't playing very well. And the phone rang, and Harry answered the phone, and in between his woodbines, he would mutter, something. Couldn't understand what he was talking. Then he put the phone down, and I went, "Everything okay, Harry?" He said, "Well," he said, "if you're fit, you're playing at Southampton tomorrow." And I went, "Well, I'm fit then. Don't give me no more treatment." Anyway, I wouldn't have even been fit to play for the reserves. But that wasn't an excuse. That was just for, don't. But that was, I always say about the chap I met from Barbarella the other night, just a freak bumping into. I could actually, from the treatment room, if the stadium was all glass, I could see straight into Barbarella because it was part of the ground, wasn't it? Yeah. And I would have seen them 4 players come out there getting caught, And Charlie fell over the wall. You know, the man with the greatest balance in football fell over the wall, and so that's when you knew there was too much wine on the table.
I love it, mate. Love it.
Yeah.
I checked last night.
And obviously the following day, I mentioned that because the following day, John and I made our debut. That was the first we made our debut together, the Chelsea debut. So, and I never knew him there. I don't think I spoke to him that day. I can't remember anything about it. It was just because of the scoreline, I suppose, and everything else. I never played again. Never played again for 3 months. But there we got lost 5-0. It could have been 10-0. It could have been 12-0. Ron Davis and Martin Chivers and all that. Young Mickey Shannon. They totally obliterated us. And then you are 4 months later, 5 months later, you're in the FA Cup final, you know, and 18 months later in the European Cup Winners' Cup final. So our life can change that, but all from that day with them, you know. And the sad thing about this kind of stuff is we never got to sit down. Like, I mean, you and I, we had days at Ascot and things like that, and lovely days out. And, you know, Dempsey was one of the, you know, he was like the lovely Nobby Houseman, you know, but he died tragically too young, him and Sally. But, you know, we're dwindling down. Someone we got left his boilers, and he don't even know how to work his email.
He can't get on the computer.
He can't get on. He can't even join us today because he hasn't got a clue about technology. I mean, I'm not one for mobile phones and all this, but I do know you just got to press the button, Johnny. Give him that little message from me, Tom. When you
I'm working with him Sunday. I'll do two things. I'll give him a slap and then I'll tell him how to use it. But
take your computer with you, Tom.
Exactly. I'll take it just to press a few buttons. Ironically, it's 50 years on Saturday how I made my debut.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I made it as a 16-year-old kid. So, madness. So, yeah, 50 years. You asked me where 50 years have gone, mate. I don't know. There was a good...
I've got a good idea.
A nice few days at Ascot with you. There's a couple gone.
You wouldn't have made 50 years. We would have went every day.
Oh, my God. If I'd have gone back to London a couple of nights, I definitely wouldn't have been here. But no, it was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we talk about Johnny Dempsey, we've got to mention, I mean, you said earlier, Tom, that he wasn't renowned as a game changer, and of course not many centre halves are. No. But he was certainly a game changer in Athens in 1971.
Oh, mate, listen, I remember jumping up so high. I mean, it was mental. Obviously, Real Madrid, I think we'd drawn the first game and maybe should have won it. And then obviously, second game, you think, well, we ain't going to do that again against a fantastic football club and team like Real Madrid. But, I mean, when Dempsey hit that, I mean, even he, I think, said that he didn't have a clue what was going on. He just slung a leg at it. And the contact was something like that Pele would have been proud of. I mean, he just hit the roof of the net. And I hit the roof. I hit my roof as well, but I was in Basingstoke at the time.
Well, there you go, mate. You touched on another point of his modesty, because he had the ability to do that kind of thing. You know, he had the technique. In fact, I remember, well, 10 years ago now, we was up in Birmingham. We'd done a thing at the NEC, you know, where you all used to get, I don't know if you were there, Tom, was signing autographs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, mate.
I was sitting, no, that was at Olympia, where I was sitting next to Lester Piggott doing it. But Demps was there. My friend, I drove down from Stoke, and my friend David Grice was with me, and we spent half hour with Demps, and my mate was blown away. He said, I can't believe he's a footballer. He said, just such a nice man. He said, unbelievable. Yeah. And he told me, and David said, you know, about you playing centre half, and he come out of his shell a little bit. He went, at Fulham, you know, he said, I've got a couple of emergency games. I played centre forward. He said, I scored a hat-trick in one game. I scored a couple in this game. He said, I got goals for Fulham. And the first time I've ever seen talk about himself like that, you know. Yeah. But it was only because he was talking to a complete stranger, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And
tell you what, Al, you wouldn't want to be in the centre halves that day, would you? Him playing centre forward.
I wouldn't want to be a centre forward against him. No.
No.
No. His hair would have got in my eyes anyway.
His flow. It was a flow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wish I had the problem now though. But...
He used to have this running with Osgood. Osgood used to pick him out all the time. Your Barnet, your Barnet. You saw your Barnet out. You look like, he used to call him Max War and all this, and he used to talk to him. And we were away playing away from home. And one Saturday morning we got out and Osgood was in he was in the bathroom doing his hair, strangely enough. And I said, I'm going downstairs. I'll see you down for pre-match meal. I said, but when I get down, I said, I'm going to tell Demps that I peep through the door and I see you lacquering your hair. Anyway, I went downstairs and I said, all right, Johnny. He went, all right, Al. I said, I need to talk to you, mate. I got some really top news for you. You'll love this. I pulled him aside. I went, what do you think about him? He keeps digging you out about your Barnet. What about him? I said, I can't believe it. I said, I've got ready, just coming out. I've had a little peek through the door. I've got him in the mirror with his can spraying lacquer on his hair. He needs to hold his hair together, doesn't he? He went, no, does he really? Thanks, Al. Well, when he come down, I said, I got you, Osgood. I got you, Osgood. Like a little kid he was. Oh, mate, what a setup. But that's what they were like all the time. Them two were like it all the time. They were, the love with everyone with Dempsey was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Tom, what was it? You must have been up against him in training. Centre forward against centre half. What was that like?
Yeah, well, listen, it was great because when you're being mugged by a very good centre half, you learn a lot about yourself and a lot about how to do things differently. And John, look, Alan would know. I mean, I was one who liked to get in behind, and that was what my forte was: pacing behind and maybe score a goal or make a cross for somebody. But Demps would read it. Sort of, I'd be making the runs in training, and Dempsey would already be where I was making my run. And that experience and that nous was something that the great players had. I mean, I remember playing, Alan would have played with him as well, and against him, Bobby Moore, many years ago when he was at Fulham. And I was only a kid, as I said, showing trying to get him behind, and you'd make the runs, and he'd just be there already, with a cigar on, like just giving them and like, what are you trying to do, kid? And John Dempsey was the same, and in training he'd do it. That awareness of where you were going to make your runs. And when you needed to get physical, as Alan's rightly analysed, he could get tight to you, and he just had a very, very good tactical brain. And he was 6'2", but he didn't lack pace either. When you tried to get him behind him, even if you got a run on him, he'd be able to get back. And he was very upright, Al, when he's running, wasn't he? He was like even when he ran, he looked tall. A lot of people crouch down and sort of get you back, but he was, as I said, very, very elegant centre half. I
think that was because of his physique, Tom.
Yeah,
because a lot of centre halves in them days. And I mean, to be a centre half in them days, and going before I got in the team, I remember the likes of Andy Lockhead and people like that at Burnley, to mark people like that, and Dempsey used to deal with these people. But there was really nothing of him soaking wet. He was a little bit before Ozzy broke his leg. He was like that. He was very lean and
very lean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he dealt with things for a centre half who weren't that. You think a centre, you see someone like Sam Allardyce, big
chunky, yeah.
They're big centre halves. They're all big centre halves in them days, and and Dempsey was always great as well, because I used to, when I could get the ball off Johnny Hollins out of his hands, I would take the corners from the left, and I loved. I mean, one of the greatest sights I've ever seen in football was, in a big day, on a big match, was taking a ball on the left and you seeing Hutch, Webby coming up, and you got Dempsey and Webby coming up, and you got Hutch and Oz in there, and even later with Chris and Bill Guy, you got it's a birthday picking one of them. But Demps would be the one that would always run to the near post, and I think that's why he lost a lot of his hair. He used to skim the ball off the top of his, So I should have apologised to him really about his balding. I should have said that was me doing the lecker.
I think Alan Gilzine at Spurs had the same problem. Al kept going to the near post. I remember his balding as well.
There could be something in that, Tom.
Yeah,
could be
that's
something.
why when far post, mate. I ain't got a lot left. Look, so. But no, I mean, he was.
Sorry, Tom, to interrupt you. But he must have had a very strong character because he had that very distinctive hairstyle for quite a long time. And people, like Alan said, must have taken the rise out of him. But he obviously had a strong character to keep having the hairstyle that he wanted.
Oh, listen, I'm not going to... Alan knows him far better than I, but he was a very, very strong character, mate, as I said. And he's... and that came through on the pitch. As he said, a little bit of ridicule in the dressing room. Everyone does that and everyone can take it. And if you can't take it, you've got a massive problem. But because that's part of football life. But, on the pitch, he was such a character, but you didn't know it. That's my point is that nobody knew John Dempsey or what he was about because he was just so quiet. He was the quiet assassin. I think, was it Addy? I think it was Al or Ozzy called him the quiet assassin because that's what he was. He was a determined, elegant, proper centre half who was brave in everything he did. But no one noticed him. And it was mad, but his character shone through in every football match.
Yeah. Have you got anything to add to that, Al?
Well, I was just, as Tom was talking, I was just thinking my days watching him at Fulham and, the kind of characters they had at Fulham, they were all kind of characters. Well, I think that's why because my father was from Fulham and we were Fulham supporters as such. But it was like Tommy Trinder was in charge, and they were all like it was on the London Palladium at the time, and they were all like, I don't know, well, they were all like kind of half comedians, apart from Johnny Haynes, who was probably the greatest. So he played with some players, and as I say, how they picked him out, I don't know. I really don't. He's obviously his best signing, I suppose. Around that time, Charlie was when Docky brought him down, but it was an incredible signing, really, when you thought about it, because not many players come from Fulham to Chelsea.
No. No.
I'm glad he did, because I'm glad that we had him in our life, because our Chelsea team would have been as good as what it was without John Dempsey. I know that, because without saying about any other defenders, he was the most reliable defender we had, or reliable player. Consistency is everything in the game, as you know, Tom. And to your performance, if you can perform consistently, and that was his strength.
Yeah,
week
in, week out. As a supporter, Al, I used to turn up obviously every Saturday, Wednesday night against Junes Houtarage, or wherever it was in whatever cup we were in. But if you saw a Jay Dempsey in the team, you were a very happy supporter, and that's testament to his ability and character. Yeah.
And the only time I've ever heard him say anything in training, it's quite interesting actually. It's a lot to be going on with in the modern game. This thing with passing back to the goalkeeper and playing 1-2s with the goalkeeper, which we couldn't have done. Our defenders couldn't do that. Number one, you technically it was a no. And I said to someone the other day, I said to Paul Miller a couple of days ago, we had Paul on, and I said, would you play 1-2s with Pat Jennings? He said, I don't think so. Yeah. And and David just come up with this new thing, and I heard someone say on a match the other night, about marking space, zonal. They call it. They brought it in as zonal marking, didn't they?
Yeah.
You'd have been in just on the brink. Then you'd have been in the reserves then, the young reserve player.
Yeah.
And so I suppose it's something to do with Dario as well. But and he was totally against it. Demp spoke up. You know, it was right as well. Man for man marking. You can't get away from man for man marking, and because someone can score a goal, people let them run, and you know, he was coming in your space. You know, there's no excuses. Man for man marking, and that's what Demps was.
Yeah. Alan, have you ever seen Space score a goal?
No.
So why mark it? You know,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's my point. And what you've just said is exactly, you know, your centre backs, Webby, John Dempsey, it was their responsibility to pick up an Andy Lockhead, for instance, who you quoted. And if Andy Lockhead scored and John Dempsey was marking him, you'd have to hold your hands up, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah.
This is for me, marking Space is a cop out.
Well, absolutely. Marking the person and giving someone responsibility. That's your job.
Yeah.
And if you look at it another way and said, let's have zonal marking in midfield, what does that mean? You know, well, what do we do? What do we, you know?
Yeah.
Your obligation is to, you know, I always bring Bremner and Giles, you're playing against them. Well, there's no such thing as zonal marking, mate. You give them 10, 15 yards and you're finished, you know. Alan Ball, play against Alan Ball, you know, zonal marking, you know.
Yeah.
So that was another one out of the coaching book that kind of ruined us for a while. We didn't like it, and it showed, you know. Webby didn't care too much because he was too busy going up the other end trying to score.
Scoring winners in cup finals. I know. Yeah, he wanted all the glory. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the only right back I'd ever known to score 3 goals. He come in the Lord Palmerston one night with Chelsea won 3-1 at Ipswich over Christmas or New Year, and he scored a hat trick from right back, and that about Webby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then he
we lost 4-3. The left winger scored 4 for them. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Demps, we got to be honest as well. He did tell some terrible dad jokes, didn't he?
Oh, mate, he was a shocker in the he was a lot older than us, and he was a shocker in the dressing room. But that was a part of his character. Alan made the point earlier, very early in the podcast, that he was a joker. He was a guy who loved to be and he loved laughing. You know, not only was he telling the jokes, he'd laugh at his own jokes. He was
the only one.
We loved. I was talking to Johnny Bumstead last night. I was talking to Johnny Bumstead, Colin Pates, and our very limited but fond memories were of his laughter and his jokes and the crosses on his knees. I mean, only Demps could do that. You know, it was just part of his character, and we just loved him, and we were talking so fondly about him last night. In great memories, and as I said, Alan must have 1 million of them. We've got 4 or 5, but it's just so. We all said how sad it was because again, a couple of months ago, he was with us laughing and joking. Yeah,
and it's I was set up. I got a phone call from Boilers, and it was saying that the thing of the sadness about it always. Or the good thing about the consolation with Dempsey is that you speak about John Dempsey and you just got to laugh. You know, it's and he's left us with so many happy memories of him. You know, he's no sadness at all, only that he's not with us. But I remember one day we were going across Amsterdam or somewhere from one side to the other, and passports had to come out or something, and parcels come out, and a fella's come on the bus, you know, at the border, and he's gone looked through the passports. He's gone, Cook, no, you know. They got to Dempsey. He went, Dempsey, yeah, Dempsey. He went, yeah. So he's jumped up in the air, and Dempsey jumped up in the air. He said, can't remember you, Oscar. He said, and you, and he said, can't remember. Charlie Cook can't remember. He remembers me. He said, because I played in Denmark one night. He said, that it might be the game at Denmark. And I was going, "What?" You know, we used to tell these little stories, tell stories about what one of the funniest things happened in a game. And this, he played for Air against Denmark. He said, and the pitch was really tight. He said, and they had a corner. Denmark had a corner. He said, I was having a right run in with their centre forward. He said, he was hitting me and I was hitting him. And he said, it was great. It was great. I loved it. He said, anyway, they got a corner. He says, I've smashed him for the first corner. He said, and it's gone back out of play. He said, and as they put the ball down to take the second one, he said, I'm getting behind him to, you know, kind of approach him on both sides, wondering where he's going to try and hit me again. He said, and someone hit me over the head. He said, I've turned behind. He said, I've turned round. He said, there's this little old lady standing there with an umbrella. This is an international match. He said, she gone round near the corner flag, asked the policeman to let her through. She walked round and the ball stopped and she walked on the field and smashed him over the head with an umbrella. Only Demps. Only Demps.
Exactly.
And you couldn't have had it on film, you know. It's unbelievable.
Brilliant.
But,
Well, it's been great listening to all your memories, guys. But I want to pin you both down. One, abiding, when you think of the name John Dempsey, your old mate, what's the one abiding memory you would have of him, Tom?
Fun, laughter, and just a lovely, beautiful human being. He really was. And I had the pleasure of, as I said, travelling in with him, Tony. And yeah, I mean, as Alan said, we're losing far too many of our great players. And I was so shocked and saddened on this week. It was just a horrible phone call with me. Even my son texted me after, and he obviously realised I was upset, and he said, "Sorry, Dad," that he'd let me know. And obviously I'd have found out somehow. But he heard and he felt the sadness in me when he told me, and it rang. So it was such a such a shock, and just as Alan said, listen, I'm pleased I had John Dempsey in a little bit of my life, because the laughter and the character of the man was fantastic.
Alan?
And well, it's the funny story again is when I was talking to him one day about being, as I said, me and my little mate Boise, we love Fulham, and he was telling us a story about. He said, I used to have a run-in with Vic Buckingham, who I don't know, Dockett used to call him Tricky Vicky, but he had a name for everyone, Tommy. And he called him in one day. He said, "This won't. You know." He said, "It's wrong, John." He said, "You're late for training every morning. You know why is this?" So he says, "No," he said, "I'm not late every morning." He said, "So it just happens that you caught me once or twice." He says. So he went. He said, "Well, next time you're late," he says, "I'm going to fine you." So the following day, they were training at the cottage somehow, and he said, I got to the cottage. I got there 10:25, 5 minutes before we started training. And I waited on the corner, sat in my car for 5 minutes till the past 10:30. He said, and I walked in and he says, "Gotcha." He said, he marched me into the office and, "You know, I've got to fine you." In them days, they wouldn't, you know, I don't know. I might be wrong. They would take out your wages or whatever. And he said, I'm fining you £5 for being late. That was probably about a fifth of his wages. So he said, "Don't bother," he said, "taking out my wages." And he pulled £5 worth of halfpennies out his pocket, or farthings, or what it was in them days. And he put the coins on his table. And he said, "Thank you very much," and walked out. He said, "I was never late again." And that was it. And that was it. But yeah, I suppose we all love, you know, everyone loves to say that they, you know, I'm looking at that thing there. Chelsea won a DVD of the 1971 Cup Winners' Cup. I'm just so pleased that he scored in that game.
Yeah.
I really am, because people don't get, as we both said, people like him don't get enough credit, recognition. He could walk through Stamford Bridge sometimes. I do. I don't get recognised with a new supporter, but people you'd have to introduce him.
Yeah.
But they can't take that off him. He scored the all important goal. I mean, Ozzy scored the others. Always put us in front, Oz, but we needed a goal from someone else, and it just happened to be him.
Yeah.
And as I say, it was no fluke that this fella could, as he told me one day, he could do it. He'd done it at Fulham a few times, and he was a very special player for us. And I find it very difficult to believe he's gone, to tell the truth. And the terrible thing about our life as footballers is that we don't see enough of each other. And when you leave one club and you lose touch and everything else, but this brings it all back, doesn't it? And I hope we get together if he has have a gathering for him, and open a bottle for him, Tom.
Yeah, always, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Salute Demps. God bless him.
Yeah. We both love him. I know that. It's great. Great to have you on, Tom.
And you, love you talking to you, mate.
Thanks very much, Tom. Great.
Cheers, Tony. Been a pleasure. Cheers, mate.
Yeah. Rest in peace, John Dempsey.
Yeah, God bless you.
Yeah. Love you, mate.